Across the former Soviet Union, countless buildings and entire towns were left behind when the system collapsed. Grand sanatoriums, secret military bases, and mining settlements once filled with life now stand silent, slowly being reclaimed by nature. Their walls still hold traces of the people who lived, worked, and suffered there, and the stories behind them are often darker than they first appeared. Today, we're exploring 3 abandoned Soviet places with genuinely creepy backstories. A luxury sanatorium that turned into a ghostly ruin, a secret missile base that locals still fear, and a mining town that simply disappeared from the map. Point 1. The sanatorium that promised healing but left only ghosts. During the Soviet era, sanatoriums were more than just hospitals. They were part of the social system. Workers were given vouchers to rest and restore their strength at seaside resorts and mountain spas. One such sanatorium, once famous for its grand architecture and elite guests, is now a haunting shell overlooking the sea. Built in the mid-20th century, the complex featured sweeping staircases, marble columns, fountains, and terraces with palm trees. Party officials, war heroes, and top scientists came here to relax under strict medical supervision. Photos from the time show people sunbathing on balconies, playing chess in shaded courtyards, and drinking mineral water prescribed for the heart or for the nerves. But behind the glamorous facade, the sanatorium had a darker side. Patients were sometimes sent there not for rest, but for quiet removal from public life, especially dissidents or inconvenient officials who needed to be kept out of sight. Some never returned home, officially recorded as victims of sudden illness. Staff later whispered about strange nighttime transfers, closed-off wings, and VIP patients guarded like prisoners. After the collapse of the USSR, funding dried up. The sanatorium struggled, then closed. Staff left quickly, taking what they could. Medical equipment, furniture, and personal belongings remained. Today, explorers walk through grand halls with chandeliers hanging at odd angles, treatment rooms with rusting bathtubs, and bedrooms where curtains still flutter in the sea breeze through cracked windows. In the abandoned cinema, rows of seats face a torn screen in the ballroom, a piano sits with its keys rotting. Some visitors claim to hear footsteps on empty staircases, distant music, or the faint echo of conversations in languages they can't quite recognize. Whether haunted or not, the sanatorium's beauty makes its decay feel especially tragic, like a palace built for healing that ended as a mausoleum of forgotten guests. Point 2. The secret missile base. The map forgot. Deep in the Soviet countryside lies the remains of a once classified missile base, built during the most paranoid years of the Cold War. Officially, it didn't exist. It was marked only as military unit number followed by a string of digits, hidden behind forests and earth mounds. In its prime, the base housed underground missile silos, radar stations, and command bunkers designed to survive a nuclear exchange. Soldiers lived in tightly controlled barracks, never allowed to mention where they were or what they guarded. Families of officers sometimes lived in nearby closed towns, where entry required a special pass and outsiders were not welcome. Accidents and near disasters were inevitable. Former personnel have spoken anonymously about fuel leaks, electrical fires, and training exercises that almost triggered real launches. One story tells of a missile that malfunctioned in its silo, forcing crews to work for hours in toxic conditions to prevent an explosion. Another describes a radar operator tracking an unknown object that moved in impossible ways, officially written off as equipment error. When the Soviet Union collapsed, funding for such facilities evaporated. Some missiles were dismantled under arms reduction treaties, others were quietly removed or simply left to rot. The base was decommissioned, the closed town partially opened, and the site gradually abandoned. Now, the once secret silos are empty concrete holes filled with rainwater and debris. Rusted launch covers sit half open, like jaws frozen mid-bite. Underground tunnels smell of mold and oil. Control rooms still contain metal panels, rotary phones, and maps of potential enemy targets pinned to the walls. Nature is taking over. Grass grows over bunkers, trees push through cracked asphalt, and birds nest in former guard towers. Locals warn curious visitors not to stay after dark. Some claim to see lights moving where there is no electricity, or hear distant alarms and radio chatter echoing from below ground. Others speak of a heavy feeling near certain structures, as if the fear and tension of decades never quite left. Whatever the truth, walking through the ruins of a place built for world-ending war feels unnerving on its own. Point 3. The mining town swallowed by its own industry. Our final stop is a former mining town somewhere in the vastness of the Soviet North. Founded to exploit rich deposits of coal or metal, it was once a proud example of industrial progress. Apartment blocks, a palace of culture, a school, a clinic, a statue of a miner holding a hammer or drill. Trains brought in supplies and carried out the raw materials that powered factories hundreds of kilometers away. Life was harsh, long winters, dangerous work, but residents had a strong sense of community. There were parades on holidays, amateur theater performances, and children's sports competitions. Many believed they would live and die in this town, as their parents had. Then the mines began to fail. Some flooded, others were deemed too unsafe or too expensive to operate. State support shrank. Shops emptied, wages were delayed, and families quietly started leaving. In some cases, authorities declared the area unsafe due to subsidence or pollution. Houses were literally sinking as the ground shifted beneath them, water became contaminated, or toxic dust coated everything. At first, only the most mobile left, young families and skilled workers. Elderly residents and those with nowhere else to go stayed behind. But eventually, even they had to move when essential services, schools, clinics, transport, shut down. Buses stopped coming. The post office closed. Power and heating became unreliable. The town was officially resettled, a bureaucratic way of saying it had died. What remains now is a full-sized settlement with no permanent residents. Apartment buildings with broken balconies stare over empty streets. The Palace of Culture's stage still has faded decorations from its last performance. In the school gym, a basketball lies deflated in the corner. Graffiti and vandalism show that people still pass through, but never for long. Explorers describe the unsettling silence. No dogs barking, no cars, no voices, just wind whistling between buildings and the occasional crash of glass falling from a window frame. Some swear they've seen lights flicker in upper floors at night or heard the distant sound of machinery from deep underground, long after the last mine was sealed. Rationally, these could be trespassers or echoes. Emotionally, it feels like the town itself is refusing to accept that it's gone. Why these places still haunt you? Abandoned Soviet places are powerful because they combine scale, secrecy, and memory. They were built to embody an ideology that promised a bright future, and yet many ended in failure, neglect, or quiet tragedy. Sanatoriums meant for healing became holding pens. Bases built to defend the state became relics of potential apocalypse. Towns founded on progress were sacrificed when the numbers no longer worked. When we walk through their ruins, or even just see them on a screen, we're not just looking at old concrete and rust. We're looking at a system that believed it could plan everything, control everything, and erase its own mistakes. The buildings remain as evidence that some stories refuse to be erased. So the next time you see a photo of an empty Soviet swimming pool, a decaying cinema, or a snow-covered missile silo, remember. Somewhere in those shadows are the lives of ordinary people who once thought these places would last forever. For them, the horror wasn't a ghost or a monster. It was waking up one day to find that the future they were promised had simply vanished.